All right. Today we're continuing our 10th Cavalry Brigade Army Creation series of videos. Today we're going to cover lists around 1,000 points. So stay tuned. All right, hello, welcome to today's video. Today we're going to, I guess I'm going to call it finish up on list creation. I'm not going to go any higher than 1,000 points only because once you get past 1,000 points, you're really going to struggle to keep the unit, like let's say we go to 1250, to keep this Army pure 10 Cav Brigade without actually going into, like, really, because everything is so cheap, you're limited to just adding more infantry models to your units. Really, that's it. Or go and vet with more and more of it. The only other thing you can do is go double platoon and just start adding more non-10th Cavalry Brigade units, which makes perfect sense because, you know, Maciek was given command of a slew of other units that weren't 10th Cavalry Brigade. But again, I mean, at that point, it's basically pick and choose which Polish units you want, right? Just avoid cavalry and armored cars. Aside from that, all the infantry, all the artillery normally works, you know, because that's what was in the area. So today we're just going to focus on 1,000 point lists. And again, 10th Cavalry Brigade specific, and then maybe 10th Cavalry Brigade with a little bit of augmentation from outside the brigade. Let's take a quick look at the models and see what I did. All right, so here's list number one. Basically, I've assumed, like I did with some of my earlier lists, that we're dealing with 24th Uhlans, or something with a unit that has some veteranness to them. So all of the infantry here are vet. First lieutenant and his bodyguard, anti-tank rifle, 2 squads BAR and 8 men, 1 squad BAR and 7 men, medium mortar, medium machine gun, all part of the 10th Uhlans, or sorry, 24th Uhlans. Now I've added a forward observer, artillery observer. That's, I believe, at the 1,000 points is not unreasonable because it's only 10% of your total. Yet it gives you a nice, possibly a very nice artillery attack that can do multiple pins, and that's really the big deal. Is the multiple pins that slows your enemy down, and a lot of times that's what puts the game more in your favor. You may not like those. I do, but that's why it's in there. You'll see some other examples, though. All right, your anti-tank gun is here on this tank because you don't really have a lot of options for anti-tank in the 10th Cavalry Brigade. This and your Bofors 37 mil. That's really it. Unfortunately, 37 mil Bofors gun has a 3 pen over 24 inches, even though it's because it's 4 pen with short range, 3 pen at long range. Well, your medium artillery is 3 pen regardless. So let's do that. And this gives you the ability of doing D3 pins, which is better than the 1 pin you get from the anti-tank gun. So let's go ahead and use a 100 millimeter Skoda. Your Skoda is going to do good infantry killing with a 3-inch blast. It's going to do really good tank interruption. We won't call it killing, let's call it interruption, because it can do D3 pins regardless. Unless you're going up against a 10 plus tank, you're going to be able to do something, potentially glancing on a 6 D3 pins. If you indirectly fire on it, you're going to be taking it out on you're glancing on 5s, again doing pins. It's going to decimate infantry, artillery, you name it. It's your killer, right? But I went with the because of points. I went with the regular medium machine gun version of this tankette. Its purpose is a little different than you might expect, but it's a way you might have seen a theme earlier in my videos, and especially if you watched the way I operated it during my Clash of Heroes Season 1. That unit is going to be the distractor and the pinner. It's going to try to skirt around the enemy, get behind them. You're going to force the opponent to try to deal with them. It's going to get in the way. If you can avoid being targeted by the enemy's AT guns, you'll be able to get behind his opponent, his lines, threatening his artillery, threatening his mortar, threatening his officer, threatening his objectives. Because again, it's a closed top armored vehicle. They're gonna have to try to charge it with a armored tank. What do you call it? Tank fear rule. Yeah, it's a nuisance. And of course, if you delay its activation long enough, it can wreck you out of the way. And because you have to go further away from it, if you're halfway up the table and he's shooting on the side of you, you can advance further up the table to get away from. So it's that much better potentially as a distraction unit. Of course, the 2 trucks, that's just characteristic of the unit. You don't need to. In fact, when the unit was engaged, a lot of the times historically, these were parked a little bit further back so that the units would fall back to their trucks to move to the next position. If you got rid of these, you'd be able to add, because this is 999 points, you would be able to add essentially 7 more models, infantry models to your units. You could do a spotter here. Yeah, it wouldn't quite be, it would be 3 each, so 6, either 3/6 across this, 13 points apiece, or 10 here for the, 10 here for the spotters. Things like, you can do stuff like that. Add an extra guy to him for 10 points. So if you want to get rid of the trucks, you could do that. But I would like to keep the trucks because it gives me the chance to bring units on reserve, either from the side, from the rear, it doesn't matter. Gets them up the table. Even if I deploy them on the table with the trucks and then loaded, I can move up the table pretty quick. And a little thing I like to do during the envelopment or double envelopment is load this unit up with the best combination of units is MMG, mortar, and a tank rifle, and probably my officer. That's 4 units in the truck, all racing across the table, running on 24. So turn 3, it's off, and I've just scored 12 points. Just like that. That's one way to do it. It's risky, but it's one way to do it. You don't have to do it with everybody. I like to keep him on because, again, that keeps the artillery barrage coming down on the opponent, and that's always good for my morale. All right, let's take a look at another combination of units. Because remember, these are all veteran, except for him, and these guys are veteran. The rest back here is all regular. All right, so let's look at platoon number 2. Some things have changed. All right, I've taken out my forward observer and basically made him the 3rd man of my officer team. I went ahead and gave the mortar and the artillery a spotter, and gave the artillery a tow, and then with a 20-point upgrade, gave my TKS the 20mm cannon. So let me talk through the rationale here. And again, if you don't like forward observers, here's a way to go. Still leaving the trucks in for same reasons I mentioned in platoon 1. It's nice to have the spotters because those will let me hide my artillery and mortar team. Much harder to take out an observer than it is to take out the gun teams themselves. The thing is, I like to have a tow for my artillery, even though the artillery can run 6, and I can start off the table. The problem is, sometimes, if I'm able to deploy, I can deploy it 12 inches up and run 6 if I need to. Not that I usually do. But if I have to come in from reserve without a tow, I can only come in 6 inches up. Lines of sight are pretty limited when you're that far back. So it's nice to be able to advance on up to 9 with the additional 6 inches here. So you maybe can get your howitzer set up 15 inches forward on the table. That's why I do this. It's a 44-point half-track. A little more expensive than the trucks, but arguably worth it. 5 points more expensive. TKS, 20mm gun. It is better than the MMG. Now, the MMG was chosen last time because of the point restriction. We were at 999 just with that. By taking out the observer and putting in the units, the models I mentioned, I've got some points left. So I put in 20 on this. That gives me 2 additional shots that can do damage to veterans, infantry, regular infantry, artillery. It can, just like the medium machine gun version, it can race up the field and cause havoc in the back lines, especially if you're dealing with rear armors and stuff. But you're going to be side armor on a lot of things that you encounter, and of course trucks and light 7+ armor. It can start cutting through that pretty easily, especially when you got 2 shots going into it. The thing is, when you, just like with the MMG version, when you get that thing up the table and start to threaten the artillery or mortar teams or objectives, positions, the things holding objectives in the back, you're going to be close to them. You could even get within 6 inches, get point blank range, no cover, no movement bonuses, and so you're actually, or no movement penalties. You're could be hitting on 2s, 3s in soft cover, 4s if it's soft cover and small team. You're going to be hitting off and doing a lot of damage to different kinds of targets, and it's going to force the opponent to think about doing something about it. And again, if you delay the activation of that long enough, you can react by scooting out of the way. And always be careful when you position those models so you can actually do that. So this is actually a 996 point list. Not too bad. This one is a little more rounded in the sense of being able to threaten more of the armor that's out there because of him. But again, you're giving up your forward artillery reserver. Again, you may have an opinion about that. That'll distract you one way or another. Again, trucks, take them out. You can do basically 6 more guys, 2 guys per squad. Yep, that's what you can do with them. And that'll leave you with, as a matter of fact, that's the same number, 996 points. So mobility or extra firepower, your choice. Let's take a look at another list. All right, completely different mix. Now here we're starting to add units that aren't part of the 10th Cavalry Brigade. These are actually going to be units that are coming from the local ON or Border Patrol or the National Guard units. Okay, KOP or ON. So I brought in the forward reserver again. We're going to treat him as, just for aesthetics, being just part of the regular Polish artillery. Divisional artillery, and got a marksman again from the Polish, regular Polish infantry that's come, Maciek has gotten command of. That means we have to lose our extra bodyguard. Now, again, our basic units here stay the same. Now, one important difference here is they're all regular. So to give me some more points to play with, I want regular. That's how I got the 100 points here. But I wanted to keep my 20mm autocannon, and I want to keep my spotter, so I had to do some other monkeying. So I got rid of the trucks, brought them all down to regular, and decided to make my medium artillery veteran. The reason for that is that I found in a recent game that these can be taken out pretty quick, even if you got a gun shield, just through the constant attrition, being shot at all the time. So making them veteran makes it harder to kill them. And that's definitely a good use for them. I'm breaking my rule for lack of a better term. I'm gonna call it breaking character. Actually, remember I mentioned that the artillery unit was kind of created just a few years before the start of the war, so they didn't really have a chance to really get to be veteran. But who knows? Maybe these guys were artillerymen from before, and they're veteran, right? So I went with that. That's the way I decided to do it. Same tank, but now I added the KOP squad. Or I call them. This is my National or Border Protection Corps squad that I've been using in the first season of Clash of Heroes. It's just a regular infantry squad, 10 men, BAR, 105 points. That's why I kind of, 105 points, 100 points here. I needed to take out some stuff elsewhere. Hence all the regular, and then the spotter here. But no spotter on the mortar. So it gives you a little more. There's a lot of units here. What is that? 4, that's 7, 13 order dice. Respectable. and I want to say it's like 995 or something like that. So let's take a look at one last platoon variation. Alright, here's the last iteration. Now, here again, trying to go with the flavor of Maciek getting his additional units from other parts of the Army unit that were kind of falling back and being added to his command. Again, everything now is regular. In fact, even the artillery piece is regular. The only exception is an inexperienced. This is my Border Patrol, Border Protection, National Guard, the ON. It's just essentially a 10-man unit with a BAR. There's the KOP again, 10-man with BAR. My same units up here as before. One thing I did, I want to stress, I still have that forward artillery observer. You can do a lot if you take him out, but again, I like to have it here. Yeah, I basically gave up this medium machine gun and got this unit. It's roughly 70 points the same direction. So, got me the extra guns that way. Still have a spotter. Everything else stays exactly the same, including the marksman. Now, marksman again being regular, it's a single die. It's a 36-inch 3+ pin basically. Possibility of you killing something, especially if you can do something to the officer, the opponent's officer. That'd be good. So that is another way to approach it. So again, I still think it's 13. That's 7. 10, 11, yep, 13. So there's a lot you can do even with 1,000 points. Some variety you can get. And again, you want to go heavy infantry. That's 5 units that can score objectives. In fact, the only reason I use this is to draw fire near an objective where I can go down. And of course, artillery, that's a whole other story of artillery going against them. But getting shot, I mean, they're going to be hard to hit. Usually they're in cover or behind some cover. And David hated us in season 1. But that's what they would do. And so they're, don't pass up inexperienced infantry. This being 75 points versus 105 points gives you 30 more points to play with. 30 more points can be, in the rest of this being, I believe this is 30 because, yes, that's a 30. That's your anti-tank rifle team. Going from regular to inexperienced pays for this. It can also pay for, one of each of these units, one of their men. So, inexperienced has some options. Alright, so hopefully this has been of value to you, to seeing how you can build your 10th Cavalry Brigade. The more you can do, it depends on what you want to do. You can go strictly 10 BK or go historical and start adding units like I did here to reflect the additional Polish units that Maciek was able to command later in mostly the second week of the campaign. Alright, well, hopefully you enjoyed this. Share, like, subscribe, especially if you have other people, friends of yours that are fans of the Polish Army. And we'll see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.